Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports coming to you worldwide on the iHeartRadio network, the #1 network in the United States of America. Also, Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the world, actually in the universe, Big C. So we've been expanding our audience, Big C, according to Big C and his good old boys. Also want to say thank you to all the people in Latin America for following Big C Sports. We know the great NFL has a game down in Mexico this evening, but I also want to acknowledge all the people from Spain and Berlin and Russia, and even Africa, on the African continent. We have Dubai and Australia also following Charlton and Big C Sports, the #1 and only freestyle sports show in the United States, only heard on the iHeartRadio network. And also, of course, I want to say hello to you good old boys from Canada. Thank you so much for following Charlton and Big C. I'm not even going to try to attempt your national anthem because I got so much hate mail, you guys. I apologize. I'm going to learn eventually. But also, Big C, speaking of hate mail, how's it going for you good old boys down south trying to succeed again from the Union, Big C?
Well, Charlton, we are the Union. Everybody is paying attention to us. But also, I want to begin the show on a somber note. I want to send my condolences out to law enforcement, Charlton. Over the last 3 days, we've lost four, count them, police officers here in the United States unjustly, you know, to some crazy citizens that have felt that they should go out and assassinate police officers, Charlton. This is not America. This is not the land of the free. This is not what we were taught growing up. You were taught to respect law enforcement, Charlton.
Yeah.
But we've had four valuable police officers lose their lives in the last 4 days. And I can't help but attribute some of this to the presidential race, Charlton, about speaking violence to American citizens. And now they're going out and acting it. And if you look at these things that have been occurring since the presidential election, I think it's caused a lot of unrest in the country. But my condolences goes out to the law enforcement, their families, and their community as brethren, Charlton, because this should not be happening in America.
Well, Big C, I definitely agree, and all of our thoughts and prayers go out to all the officers and their families. I hope that we can keep people safe, and it takes law enforcement to do that. So my hat goes out to all of the good law enforcement officers out there. And, of course, we have to keep the peace in this country. And speaking of keeping the peace, this segment is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive it, tell them you want the one that Charlton and Big C drive, or just tell them that Charlton and Big C sent you. And, of course, Big C, you won't believe how much mud I'm seeing on Cadillac Escalades lately. I was just pulling up to the gas station today, and there was a one kind of like yours. It was a black Big C, but it was kind of brown and black. Like, I thought it was a UPS truck for a while. It had so much mud on it, Big C. How's the Escalade working for you, Big C?
Well, Charlton, I'm going to have to go out and create my own mud. It's dry and harsh around here. I think, you know, you guys are getting all the precipitation out there in California, and we've gotten very little here in the southeast, all the way up in the northeast. They're getting some snow, and the snow doesn't do me any good, Charlton, because that will wash the mud off, okay?
Yeah.
I need some water on the ground so when I'm hitting those buildings and stuff, it splashes up.
Well, it was the group that sang that song. I wish they all could be California girls, but they surely don't want all the California water. And speaking of California girls, I don't know where she's from, but last night they had the American Media Music Awards. They call them the AMAs out in Southern California. And Sierra, I believe she's a spouse of Russell Wilson for the Seattle Seahawks. And not only is she very talented, very pleasing to look at. I saw so much of the good stuff that we talk about in our society. A lot of young people. And I'm just really impressed with how they saw this whole stage, Big C. It was diverse. They had African Americans. There's a gentleman from, I believe he's from the comedy show Saturday Night Live. He was in there. He looks a lot like Eddie Murphy, Big C. And there's a girl called Gigi Hadid. Now, these are young people, so I really don't pay that much attention to them. But a lot of young people tell me these are the new hot people. And so I was just impressed with how diverse Hollywood is becoming. And we talk about sports in Hollywood. They all had something to say on the debate because they care about the country too. And they all are so hyped about the sports business. So it all goes hand in hand. But is Hollywood actually making an effort to be more inclusive, unlike some of the things that are happening in the NCAA that we'll talk about, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, when you look at Hollywood, but not just Hollywood, you're really talking about the music industry. the music industry has always been integrated, Charlton, long before Hollywood was.
Yeah.
Because behind the scenes, African Americans have always been behind the scenes in the music industry. They were writing the songs, they were singing the backgrounds, they were playing the instrumental. A lot of white singers of the 40s and 50s and even early 60s got a lot of credit for what African American entertainers did, Charlton.
Yeah.
But now, it's an even playing surface when you look at it. The industry is still owned by, mainstream America.
Yeah.
But when you look at, how sports, and you think about it, a lot of athletes over the decades have gone into the music industry.
Yeah.
Deion Sanders released an album.
Yeah.
Shaquille O'Neal released a couple albums. Many players, Charlton, have gotten into that industry, whether it was by producing, owning, record labels. You've had a plethora
the whole
of guys
gamut
that have done it.
Yeah.
But, the thing about music and sports is that when you listen to every sports broadcast, Charlton, every sports channel, they're all playing music of today's modern entertainers, whether it's rap, hip-hop, R&B, even some country western stuff, a lot of rock and roll, Charlton.
Yeah.
Music and sports are synonymous with each other because they both galvanize America.
Yeah.
You sit down, if you enjoy the chords of a music, that's all it is. It's not about the entertainer. It is about the quality of the craftsmanship of their work.
Yeah.
Just like with athletes. When you sit down and you watch a great athletic performance, it's like a virtuoso in music. It's like going to the opera, and I know you don't want that.
What's the opera, Big C? No, they have it out here in California. I peruse them every now and then.
Okay, that's what we call
I grew up on Tupac, I understand.
When you're looking at all this, how it works together, you have athletes. Matter of fact, there was a game in Toronto a couple of nights ago where the Golden State Warriors was playing.
Yeah.
And Drake, this artist now out of Canada, is so much a part of the Raptors organization, is that he's constantly into it with opposing teams. And he and Kevin Durant got into it. He and Steph Curry got into it. But they know each other in the professional and private world.
Yeah. The new Spike Lee, I guess the Spike Lee up north, is that what they call him now, Big C?
Spike Lee, you can't say Madison Square Garden in the Knicks without saying Spike Lee, courtside,
Spike Lee makes movies.
Jack Nicholson and the Los Angeles Lakers, Celtics.
Yeah.
When you look at entertainment and sports, they're hand in hand.
Hand in hand.
They want to be involved.
Yeah, there's so much goodness in this world that sports will bring about. People getting together. We can all be different on our politics, Big C. We can all be different on, what religion we have and who we vote for and on all that stuff, and that's fine. But something, when I grew up, a lot of good old boys, they would compete for each other. They would compete against each other on the basketball court or on the football court, sometimes playing cards, Big C. But no matter who won the game, after they were finished, they would have a beer, or they go out and get a bite to eat or a hot dog or something, or they go to a sporting event. And I think that's what's going to make our country better. And speaking of sporting events, I want to congratulate one of the greatest drivers out there in the NASCAR. Jimmy Johnson celebrates after reaching a big milestone in racing right now. Has 7 tying titles now. He's tied the great Richard Petty and the great Dale Earnhardt Sr., Big C. Just amazing driver in the Sprint Cup Series. And these guys, you good old boys down south, that's where race car driving takes place. So congratulations to him. He's a young man, but definitely has a lot more racing in front of him, Big C. And as we get on to a lot of other things that are happening around the world of football, we know we have college football. We'll hit a little bit on that. And then we'll get into what's happening with the NFL. And, of course, bienvenidos to all of our Latin American listeners, because the Oakland Raiders are in town. The Raiders are coming to town, and they're going to scalp the, I think they call it Houston Texans. Brock Osweiler will he throw for over 99 yards? That's the big line in Vegas, Big C. Will Brock throw for over 90? I think he may get about 199 yards in this game, maybe, but less than 200 for sure against the Raiders defense. Raiders going to score a lot of points in that game, in my opinion, Big C. But before we get into that, I just want to say the NCAA, Dr. Richard Lipchek, he was talking about some things going on in the world of sports, and they're talking about hiring of African Americans and etc. He is the director for the Institute on Diversity and Ethnic Sports. Now, he said that 88% of the student population in the United States, 88% are run by the presidents are 88% of these Division I schools, Big C, and the student population. And you look about the presidents, they're mostly white, okay, and they run the institutions. Now, we talked about coaches. I think there was only 13 African-American coaches at D1 schools out of 128 playing schools that participate in Division I football. And they talked about a rule called the Eddie Robinson rule, which is a lot like the Rooney rule. You know, Eddie Robinson, one of the greatest coaches in the history of football, he coached at Grambling. And
college football's all-time winningest head coach.
All-time winningest head coach. And what the great Eddie Robinson did is he taught a lot of young men to have life after the sport, Big C. But this thing that came out, Dr. Richard Lipchek, he mentioned that there are not a lot of opportunities once you take the uniform off. Big C, you've been saying that for the whole last year. Okay, he was on the ESPN program, and we'll always give them knowledge. But your thoughts on 88% of these presidents for these schools are predominantly Caucasian, and they're white men for the most part, and there's nothing wrong with a white man having a job. Obviously, that's why they have the Good Old Boy Network, Big C. However, he was saying, what's the effort to get more open doors for the minority athlete? When you look at the top 25 schools, about 8 out of 10 of their athletes are all black, Big C, for the top schools. Okay, but when it comes to getting a job, they drop down to about 10%. How can we remedy that, Big C?
Well, Charlton, I don't know if this truly is a remedy. It's been the modus operandi for the last 4 decades when you look at the operation of college football at the D1 level. Just integration.
Yeah.
These schools have gone out and manipulated and capitalized on the labor of black athletes, Charlton. They've increased their stadium size, their ticket sales, their team apparel sales, Charlton.
Yeah.
Based on African-American performance. And you go back there, they'll say, no, the game has evolved. Yes, it has evolved, Charlton. The game has evolved because of the African-American player has made the game evolve. You know, we look at Texas A&M, who expanded their stadium, I believe, by about 30,000 seats 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Because of African-American players. Now, you go back to when Paul Bear Bryant was coaching at Texas A&M, they would be lucky to get 25 to 30,000 players in their stadium. And this was the late 50s, early 60s when he was coaching their pre-Alabama days.
Yeah.
And you look at what Alabama Stadium has done since Nick Saban's arrival there, you know, after he left a couple of places in the middle of the night. They expanded their stadium by some 15,000. Why? Because the domination of the African-American athletes. So this is the same school that had coaches like Gene Stallings there prior to him. You know, these coaches couldn't get the job done because they didn't have predominant black lineup. Yeah. But now that they have that, Charlton, and you look across the board at any stadium in this country that has expanded, and look at the participation of the African-American athletes in this program. Yeah. But, you know, majority of these stadiums, Charlton, the tickets are still out of reach for a lot of African-Americans. Yeah. And they're not going to be on the top of the ticket buying list. If you go to a place like Lambeau Field in the NFL, Green Bay, who has a season ticket holder list, you know, reserve list of in excess of 60,000 people. Yeah. I would beg to say of that 60,000, Charlton, not even 1,000 of those are African-Americans because they're going to get overlooked based on the geographical area of the country. Yeah. And when most of these stadiums are put up, Charlton, they're put up in poor neighborhoods, in minority areas. Yeah. Where they have gone in and pilfered these neighborhoods, you know, and they use eminent domain and condemning homes and apartment complexes and stuff to build these stadiums, Charlton. And these African Americans have been displaced, and they receive or reap any of the benefits of these programs. And that goes back to college. When we look at what college programs do, and you don't have a system set up to provide outside livelihood for these players. I mean, there's copious amounts of boosters. Oh, yeah. Programs in any city, Charlton, where these major universities exist. But the African-American players are not getting the high-quality jobs yet. A lot will get jobs, but not the boardroom jobs, Charlton, not the jobs where they're wearing a suit and tie. Yeah. They will go to work for somebody, and they'll do the labor part of that. But they won't be the guys sitting there placing the orders, answering the phone, sitting behind a desk.
Well, Big C, that's important because when you think about the world of sports, and I asked everyone, and I kind of even congratulate Kirk Herbstreit on ESPN because he said something that was a little bit poignant because he just kind of skirted around the issue, but at least he said it, and I know they have a handcuff on them. They can only say so much on the networks, Big C, but he talked about the thing that's going on with Charlie Strong down in the great state of Texas, and people talk about his record. But Kirk Herbstreit, and I'm paraphrasing, he called it a cesspool with the way that their boosters behave. These good old boys, mostly old white guys, that did not want to take orders from a black man. And that's predominantly what it is, Big C. It has nothing to do with Charlie Strong he's a great man, and he's a great person. And I looked at, there's always a winning-loss record thing, okay? But look at Art Brawls, he was fired out of a private university down in Baylor, Big C, because of some scandals that went on with some sexual misconduct that Donald Trump is so proud of, Big C. And some of the boys at Baylor were doing it, and they got released. And it also cost Art Brawls his job. So I believe there was a report that the great running back Earl Campbell that played at Texas, Big C, he was talking to Charlie Strong, and this is just hearsay, but he was saying that you're getting rid of some good old guys, some good boys, some good athletes, and he had to clean up the mess that was going on in Texas. Well, the boosters don't care if they have low-character players. They just want guys that can win. Charlie Strong is the antithesis of that. He wanted good character men, because isn't that what you say to a man and his wife when you're trying to recruit their kids to come to your great university? You want to make them greater men when they leave than they were when they got there. But these boosters, they don't think that way. They want these guys big, strong, and black, Big C. Now, they always had an easy time getting white kids because a lot of the boosters have white children. But they go into the inner city neighborhoods and they sell these black kids a bill of goods. And when a coach is doing a good job raising men of good character, and he gets rid of the sycophants that was in that program when the great Mac Brown left, and he gets rid of that bad character, they fire him because he doesn't win enough, Big C. And I think that's the wrong message. They should just tell these parents, we don't care about your kids. We just want to win football games. And you have a good man that should be given another year, but he won't because of that good old boy pressure that even Kirk Herbstreit talked about, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I look at nothing but a double standard in college football. You spoke about there's only 13 African-American coaches at the Division I Division I level.
Yeah.
Now, I go back to the beginning of the season. Notre Dame, who's had a tumultuous season, under Kelly out there, Brian Kelly, that I believe they have 4 victories, 4 victories this season.
Yeah.
No one's really calling for his head like the way they're calling for Charlie Strong.
But why not, Big C? Why not? Texas beat Notre Dame.
Let me expand on that a little more.
Yeah.
At the beginning of the season, Charlton, before they had to kick off the week before the season, Notre Dame had 6 players arrested. 6. Now, we want to talk about double standard. If that had been Charlie Strong to have 6 African-American players arrested off his roster, there'd have been sanctions. They'd have been talking about firing him at that point.
Yeah.
But what Charlie Strong would have done, he would have dismissed these players from the program, Charlton, because they were not of high quality of character.
Yeah.
What Kelly did, Brian Kelly at Notre Dame, he reinstated all of these players, Charlton, after they had been arrested, okay?
Yeah.
So he didn't care about the quality or the integrity of the program. It was about trying to win. That's why he only has 4 wins this season, because he doesn't care about quality and integrity.
Yeah.
I'll even take you further. Nick Saban, Alabama, had 2 players arrested that were documented prior to the season. One on marijuana charges, one on gun charges.
Yeah.
Neither one of these players saw a courtroom. The charges were dismissed by a judge who was a booster.
Yeah.
And this is what we talk about when boosters are part of the program. And here's a guy that you have in a legal state office who is part of the program who can and not a starting left offensive tackle for Alabama.
Yeah.
You'd have been in jail.
Yeah.
Okay? But because you're going to help this university gain more prestige as an African and help them with this, we need you in the program. We're going to let you go.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, 2 years from now, if you're not in the pros and you're not at Alabama,
where are they then?
You'll go to jail. Okay?
Yeah.
Plain and simple. We don't know you because you don't wear the Crimson Tide anymore.
Yeah.
Now you're Joe Citizen.
Yeah, that's true. And see, Big C, the thing that I liked about Dr. Richard Lipchick, he's a white guy, okay? It's not, some people say, well, why do you guys talk about race all the time?
Charlton, you got to understand.
Yeah.
These guys know.
Yeah.
They're part of the system. They sit there and witness it, and they've kept quiet for so long. I think one of the things that Donald Trump has done for this country, even though there's a lot of negativity that he has spawned, is that he has made people talk and tell their feelings, Charlton. They're no longer being hush-hush and just saying it behind closed doors. They're saying it all the time, regardless of what it is. And when we look at what has been the upheaval in America, it hasn't been black people. We've struggled our entire lives, our entire history in the United States. We know what hardship is.
Yeah.
But it's white America that's fearful of the hardship that he may create for them, so they're not all being quiet.
Yeah, these are white.
You have, educators.
Yeah.
You have professors. You have scholars coming out now saying, this is what society is. We can no longer be quiet about it, about improprieties that have been led to the black culture.
And see, when you think about it, when all those kids out in the street protesting, whether it's up in Portland, Oregon, these are Caucasian students that are out there protesting Donald Trump's behavior, because a lot of them, unlike their parents, they don't believe in bigotry. They don't believe in segregation. I know a lot of their parents do, because even growing up, there would be a lot of Caucasian parents that would say, well, you want to make sure you date inside of your race because you don't want things to be difficult for you, or, you don't want things to be difficult for the kids. What they're really saying is you want to maintain the status quo, and there's this, like Hillary Clinton talked about, this invisible ceiling or this glass ceiling, and they're trying to crack it. Well, racism is the same as sexism. But during the civil rights movement, a lot of African Americans marched and got beaten up, and some of them lynched and shot and had police dogs sick on them and sprayed by police water hose, okay? And some of the white ladies were able to walk right into the civil rights movement, the doors ever open, and get jobs in management that black people never get. I mean, if they did, it was in an ancillary position. So a lot of times people, they know that it's there. So that's what I reflect about, Dr. Richard Lipchick as a Caucasian male. Not everybody white is bad when it comes to integration. A lot of good people want to solve that problem, Big C. The same thing with the sexism. You don't have to be a man to realize that sexual discrimination is bad. And it just burns me at times when I see that so many women, primarily Caucasian, they voted for Donald Trump even when he advocates assaulting their daughters. And when they send their daughters off to college universities and they have these good old boys with the same mentality that Donald Trump has, and they're grabbing the women by the crotch or sexually assaulting them, Art Browse got fired because he did not know what was going on at Baylor University. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. But if that's the tone that you're setting, it's just not good for our country, Big C. And even with sports, it can bring people together. But I'm proud of some of the white men who they have nothing to gain by speaking out, whether it's Steve Kerr, whether it's Jeff Van Gundy, or Greg Popovich, or Cuban. There's a lot of guys that just want to do what's right for all people, and I respect them a lot like I respected Dr. King, Big C. That's going to have to happen in the world of the NCAA, but I don't think it's going to happen because there's too much money, and if they get the chance to expand from 4 playoffs, first they didn't have any, then they went to 2, then they said, wow, that's a lot of money made when you have 2 playoff teams. How about they go to 4? They said, my goodness, there's a lot more money when you have 4 teams playing in playoffs. Well, a lot of these good old boys, they know math, Big C. So now they're talking about going to 8 playoff games in the next, 3 or 4 years, Big C. That means they got to recruit more black guys. They're not talking about going into an 8-game playoff in the Ivy League where it's 98% Caucasian athletes. That means more black exploitation. Fewer black coaches will get a job. And I think that's a joke, Big C. If they go to 8 games, I would ask all these young black athletes, if you don't get paid, don't play. That's my thoughts, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, you look no further than the NCAA basketball tournament that started out with 16 teams originally when it started.
Yeah.
It went from 16 to 32. Then it doubled from 32 to 65.
Yeah.
64 plus 1, it went to 65 because there's one play-in game. But, this is all about money, Charlton, exploitation.
It's exploitation.
When you look at these games, when you look at the opening tip-off,
yeah,
you're going to see at least 4 teams, Charlton, minimum. A lot of them play 5.
Yeah.
But they get nothing beyond that sweatsuit, that baseball cap, and a pair of sneakers. So when we look at athletes getting equal opportunity out of something, you'll see a kid that's number 15 on the roster.
Yeah.
Sitting down at the end of the bench. He'll end up with a corporate job because he was from the team.
Yeah.
But the African-American player won't. The guys who don't make professional ball, they're out there struggling in life.
No, he'll get a job. He'll get a job if they'll make him a security guard. There's nothing wrong with that. But they'll make him a security guard guarding the white guys that they give a 6- and 7-figure income to, Big C.
And, when you talk about the scandal at Baylor with Art Browse and stuff, okay, Charlton, just a year ago you had that at Louisville with Rick Pitino.
Yeah.
Nothing happened to Pitino.
Nothing happened to Rick Pitino.
They were involved in it. But
yeah.
You look at the level that his basketball team is in the NCAA tournament consistently. He just won a national championship 2 years prior to that. He also won a national championship before that at Kentucky.
Yeah.
So this is a guy who's generated a lot of revenue for a couple different universities. NBA also.
Yeah.
So that's what you look at. And when you want to talk about coaches being fired for sexual scandals, The swim coach is Stanford.
Yeah.
That player commits late. Okay? So, but he had an all-white team, Charlton, so you couldn't touch the guy.
Yeah.
All right? He had an all-white swim team at Stanford, so you didn't convict him. You didn't fire him. You kept him. And his play only got 3 months for rape. So athletics and politics and sports, Charlton, people say it's just a sports show. No, it's politics and society comes to play in everything we talk about and what goes on in life. Because these are athletes doing it. These are private citizens doing it. These are politicians doing it, Charlton. And if you don't put that correlation of them together, then you have a separatist society.
Well, see, I appreciate even more Kirk Herbstreit for mentioning that cesspool that goes on down in Texas. And it's a great university athletically, but and Austin's a beautiful city, a very progressive city when it comes to technology. But the way people are treated, there's a lot of good old boy behavior that is happening to Charlie Strong, and we all know it's there, okay? Let's not pretend like everybody's happy. There's a lot of people that, even the former owner of the Minnesota Vikings, he said, well, I don't want him to be a head coach. Maybe he can be an assistant. We know he was an assistant down at the University of Florida when they won 2 national championships under Urban Meyer. He also had some time spent at Notre Dame. He's a high-quality man, and for the fact that what I like about Charlie Strong, I mean, we talk about wins and losses. There was a basketball coach at Stanford. They won the NIT, but 1 year, they let him go because they were 500, even though he graduated all of his kids from the Stanford basketball team. But what Charlie Strong is doing is a lot like what Colin Kaepernick had talked about. It's about equality in our country, and if anyone can see the documentary 13th, it'd be a great movie to sit around for Thanksgiving and watch what's happening, and Donald Trump's behind this too, okay? So just take your head out of the sand. But I think it's so important, whether Charlie Strong keeps the job or not, I applaud him for having principle. He's not there having a rape culture. He's not there having a big drug culture. He's there trying to do what he told parents he would do. Make your kid better when he left here than when he got here. And for the good old boys, they don't want that. The good old boys down in Texas, and we laugh about the good old boy environment, but it's real. And out of us talking about it, I think Kirk Herbstreit, he's the only Caucasian man that I really heard talking about that good old boy mentality that exists down in Texas and a lot of other schools, Big C. But you live in that part of the country, Big C.
Well, Charlton, when you talk about African-American coaches keeping a job and getting rehired if they're terminated from their position, it doesn't happen. You get a one-time shot as an African-American head coach generally, unless you move on before you're fired. And I'll go back a decade ago to Tyrone Willingham.
Oh, yeah.
Tyrone Willingham started out coaching at Stanford, had a winning record with the hardest academic institution in America to get into, Stanford. You have to be accepted academically at Stanford before you can accept a scholarship.
Yeah.
So it is the hardest university in America for an athlete to get into. People talk about Harvard, Notre Dame. They're nothing compared to Stanford, okay? Tyrone Willingham took a job at Stanford. He was successful there for 3 seasons. In his last season there, he was 8-4. They felt that wasn't good enough to keep him. They fired him. They brought in Charlie Weiss, who was a disaster, okay?
Yeah.
They replaced Charlie Weiss with this guy, Brian Kelly. What is Brian Kelly's record this year at Notre Dame? I believe it's like 4-11.
Yeah, about 4 games. Yeah.
Tyrone Willingham got fired at Notre Dame for winning only 8 games in his 3rd season, and he had nothing but a winning season every year.
Yeah.
They're given a different set of standards as an African-American head coach than anybody else. And if anybody want to doubt what I say, look it up. It's there.
Yeah.
They won't talk about it, but it's there. He was 8-4, and they told him he had to go. Now, there had been plenty of coaches at Notre Dame that had not equaled an 8-4 season before and since him, and didn't get fired because of that reason, Charlton. But he was an African-American coach. He didn't win double digits that year. He had to go. And the coach they brought in, who had all his players, never won more than 9 games, Charlton.
Yeah, that's true, Big C.
Never won more than 9 games.
Yeah.
So that's standard. And in Weiss's last year, I believe he had a record like Brian Kelly's right now. It's 5 wins.
That's very true.
And keep getting jobs. You only have 4 wins in a season. You get fired, you get hired by another team.
Yeah.
This is what happens in the coaching ranks. It's a recycling of the same losers. You watch the NFL this year, Charlton. There's several head coaches on the hot seat.
Yeah.
I mean, up and down the list. Granted, and it's all led by Marvin Lewis.
Yeah.
An African-American coach in Cincinnati who's only taken his team to to the playoffs a half a dozen times.
Yeah.
You know, but he's the first one to go. But you look at coaches like John Harbaugh in Baltimore, consecutive losing seasons. Gus Bradley, always down in Jacksonville, always drafting in the top 5. Bruce Arians, who's had some health problems, and his time could be running out in Arizona.
Yeah.
Jeff Fisher, when was the last time he ever made the playoffs, Charlton?
Playoffs?
So, you know,
did you say playoffs? Playoffs? I'm just trying to get this guy to play a game.
I got the number 1 draft pick.
Yeah.
That's all I want. I don't want to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
But these guys are basically sanctioned with job security.
Yeah.
Because, you know, well, it's a rebuilding year for them. It's always a rebuilding year for a white head coach, Charlton.
Yeah.
Whether it's on college or professional football. That's what it is. Every fan out there who listens to us and listens to any other sports excerpt program, it's always a rebuilding year. You find excuses. You know, we look at Mike McCarthy in Green Bay.
Yeah.
Who's the problem in Green Bay? Is it Mike McCarthy? Is it Aaron Rodgers? Is it Dom Capers, the defensive head, defensive coordinator?
Yeah.
Who's the problem? But, you know, they want to look at McCarthy. Aaron Rodgers, if you look at his footwork, it's more skittish than a rookie right now. He cannot stay in the pocket more than 2.5 seconds before he decides he's nervous and he's got to go.
Well, yeah.
And so you can't make him stay there as a coach, but you're going to get the blame for it as a coach.
Yeah.
You know, John Fox in Chicago, you look at him as a head coach, Charlton.
Yeah.
I mean, Lovie Smith got fired for having better seasons than John Fox.
Yeah.
In Chicago and in Tampa.
Yeah. I mean, that.
But he was African American.
And see, so, that. Yeah, go ahead, Big C. Go ahead.
So when people say, well, these guys are, you know, being racist, being unfair, we're being statistical.
Yeah.
It's not analytics, because I'm not smart enough to understand what that is.
Yeah.
We're being statistical.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm telling you what's there. And if you doubt it, look it up. It's there. Well, and they say, wow, you know, look at the history of college football and professional football. You're going to tell me anybody right now, go back and look at the preseason top 25.
Yeah.
That's what you do. Look at the preseason top 25. See how many African-American coaches were in the preseason top 25. And see how many were still there. See how many white coaches was in the preseason top 25.
Yeah.
And see what absorbent amount of those guys are no longer there in the top 25.
Yeah.
And are those guys who are not in the top 20, the preseason top 25, Charlton, are they all talked about being fired right now?
No, not at all.
No. Only Charlie Strong.
Well, see,
only Charlie Strong.
Well, see, and I know that Texas is a little bit different. They've already tried to succeed from the United States of America, and we know that. And it's a good old boy thing that's deep. I mean, I'm not trying to say anything wrong about Texas, but there are people who put more money into an athletic high school program, like $50 million high school football stadiums, but they can't get classrooms with computers in every table, Big C. And that, I mean, most computers can get them for about maybe $200. If you get a good deal, maybe $100 each. They can't do that for all their schools to bring up the social and economic opportunities for a lot of those kids. But when you look at some of these top high schools in Texas, whether it's South Lake Carroll, whether it's a school down there called Midland Lee that won a national championship several years ago. There's Aldine, Texas. There's so many. Westlake, Trinity of Euless, Texas. I mean, they're all over the place. A lot of them have these dominant African-American athletes.
There was a movie done several years ago called Friday Night Lights.
Yeah, that was based on Plano, Texas, Permian, Texas. Yeah, Permian out of Odessa.
Bob Thornton was, the coach in the movie.
Yeah.
And they talked about even the exploitation of high school athletes.
Yeah.
About the only thing that mattered was what happened in Friday night.
On Friday night.
High school.
Yeah.
They didn't care about your academics. They didn't care about your health. It's what you did on the field for us on Friday night. And it's a sad state of affairs because it's not just Texas, Charlton. There's many places across America that these kids, they put their lives on the line trying to impress people.
Yeah.
And one of the things that's not talked about is that so many of these high school players, Charlton, over the decades that didn't make it have committed suicide.
Yeah.
And that's part of society and life, unfortunately. But this is what's happened. They put so much pressure and promise on these young men that they did not succeed academically, and these colleges did not pick them up, and they felt that they had nothing left. And this is an untold story about many athletes, Charlton. As sad as it is, and this is what they were driven to from the pressures of society and the coaches and the fan bases of these small communities that you have to do this for.
Yeah.
And a lot of these players have been injured for life where they could not go with knee injuries, shoulder injuries.
Well, look at Earl Campbell. Look at Earl Campbell. He's having a hard time walking. He may have a yellow jacket, Big C, but he was a battering ram, and he was praised for it. A lot of like they're doing Leonard Fournette down at LSU, saying this guy is big, and he's strong, and he's physical, and he can run like a truck, or he runs like a deer, or he can run through people. Okay, have him do that when he's 50 and can't get out of his chair, Big C.
They did a documentary on Earl, Charlton, less than a decade ago. And Earl had even talked about where he contemplated suicide.
Yeah.
Because his body was in such a shambles. And I can identify with what Earl was talking about.
Yeah.
When you've had knee replacements, you've had hip replacements, your life is being lived on narcotics. And they're prescription.
Yeah.
You get them from the doctors because the doctors still love you. They remember when you played 80 yards for the touchdown,
yeah.
and you bring that autographed football in there for him, something on that jersey.
Yeah.
You're playing for life.
Well, see,
all you got to do is say what you want. That prescription is filled.
Well, even the great,
go ahead. Athletes are exploited by everybody, Charlton.
Yeah.
Even doctors.
Yeah.
Doctors because they're fans. You make these guys addicted to drugs because you give them whatever they need.
They're sycophants to the fame.
Your life is going to be riddled with pain. So you got doctors making drug addicts out of former athletes. People don't want to talk about that, Charlton. And I'll tell you this. I can call my doctors in a heartbeat and tell them what I want, and I'll get it.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
No questions asked because I know what it'll do for my body. And we say better life through chemistry, but doctors are aiding and abetting former athletes become addicted prescription drug addicts.
Well, we know a lot of the issue with the CT had a lot of people covered up for people. But speaking of people who want to be covered up, how about being covered up in money? The expectation is sponsored by the California Lottery. What can a buck do for you? The California Powerball is up to $360 million, and that's coming up Wednesday on Thanksgiving Eve, and that's won by Charlton and Big C Sports. Big C, how many turkeys can we buy with $360 million?
What you mean? Who buys turkeys?
Okay, I'm sorry, you're from the South. How many wild boars?
Not too far from where I am.
Yeah.
Three of them coming to my house.
That's funny.
I don't know what time they will leave, but I know they come to my house for Thanksgiving.
Yeah, that's funny. I remember one time I spent this Thanksgiving with some good old boys down south, and I asked, what can I bring? They said, well, how about you pick up a turkey? Go pick up a turkey when you come for dinner, So I went to the grocery store, got a turkey, and brought it back. It was frozen. They said, what the hell is this? I said, well, you say get a turkey? They said, no, take the shotgun, I'll go get some turkeys. So you got to do a little bit different, Big C, but that was a good turkey anyway. But I just want to say back to this stuff about the sports business. And also, there's an author, and his name is Jesse Washington, and he's a senior writer, and he wrote this article called The Undefeated. It talks about jobs. It talks about money. It talks about race, and it talks about power. It all equals opportunity. And I love the fact that if we don't speak about certain things that make life better, it won't get better by fiat. It's always taking some type of struggle. I think the great Tommy Smith, I believe it was Tommy Smith, who held up his hand at the Olympics down in Mexico City, Big C.
Yes, he did. 1968. Behind Tommy Smith.
Yeah.
John Carlos.
Yeah. And he was talking about these young kids, and Colin Kaepernick took a strong stance about some things. And if you don't watch the documentary The 13th, you really don't understand what he meant. So everyone, do that for the holidays. You can see it on Netflix. It's good watching with your family. And when you see 13th, you'll see how it ties into Division I college football, Division I college basketball, any sport that allows them to make more money on the black athlete. And just think about this too, because this is real talk, okay? If you were to take away the black athlete from these predominant Division I college programs, you would lose these coaches who make these $7 to $8 million a year. Heck, Harbaugh makes $10 million a year, mostly because he goes out and flies airplanes around the country to recruit the most dominant black athletes he can find. There's a lot of kids in Michigan, and there's nothing about black and white being right or wrong. I'm just saying, look at the top teams in the top 25 and look at the skin color of the athletes the same way you look at the coaching on the sideline and look at the skin color of the coaches. If you're not playing, they don't have a use for you. And this is 2016. And I know that down at USC they have the great Lynn Swann, and they made him the athletic director. But just because you're black, it doesn't mean you're going to do the right thing. Lynn Swann doesn't believe that players should get paid, but I'm sure he got a lot of thank yous and a lot of other, accoutrements, what they call them, Big C, when he played at the great USC. A lot of people do. But if you're going to take the black athlete and you're going to exploit them, and you've already said 88% of the jobs are going to go to white men, whether you're an All-American, whether you make it to the NFL or the NBA or not, 88% of the jobs go to white men, and that's in 2016. You got to find a way to pay these athletes before they get intelligent enough and have more guys on the program. Like who's the guy out of Duke? He played basketball. He's now a lawyer. He says that not playing student athletes is an antitrust violation. I know he played for the great. He played for Duke University. Can't remember his name right now off the top of my head.
Billis.
What's his name? Oh, Jay Billis. Yeah, Jay Billis. Yeah, and he knows that. And there are a lot of other attorneys who are out there, but it's like they're dumb or they're being paid off. Because these kids, they get one and done if you're at Kentucky and their good old shenanigans, those good old boys down south. You got to find a way to give these kids some money while they're there, even if it's minimum wage, because it takes the pressure off of their families that may not have money in the first place from helping them out, Big C. And that's going to help alleviate some of the issues we have with the racial disparity, getting a job when you take the uniform off. Your thoughts, Big C?
I look at the broadcaster, Gilmore, who played at Stanford, who's an attorney also, Charlton.
Yeah.
You know, when you don't have the people that are attorneys speaking up for athletes that are involved in the game still, Rod Gilmore, even though Jay Billis has spoke up, but Rod Gilmore being an African-American and understanding the stripes of a young African-American athlete and also understanding how you benefit from an education. And if you're not a lawyer like he is, where you go into private practice, you're able to be accepted into a firm, where are the shortcomings? Because, you know, yes, he was at one of the higher academic institutions in the country, being at Stanford, being a graduate of it.
Yeah.
But when you look at some of these other universities, Charlton, you know, I remember years ago when ABC used to have athletes on and they would talk about what they were studying, Charlton. There were more athletes in communications than there were anything else. They were in communications or education.
Yeah.
What does that degree mean? What does a degree in communications mean? You know how to talk? You've learned how to talk since you've been in college? What's a degree in education? They didn't talk about secondary education, Jonathan. They didn't talk about being a professor. They said education. You go to college to get an education. That's being undeclared. That's what that is. And so they would put these athletes in these programs where they could at least keep a sufficient GPA to play, to be academically eligible.
Yeah.
They were not preparing them for life. I didn't see these African Americans come on being a major in mathematics, economics, physical science, you know, astronumerologists, you know, these things, Charlton. They didn't say that. They were in communications and education. So they were, you know, colleges were dumbing down the athletes academically to keep them eligible athletically. And this was an accepted stance for decades, Charlton. Even today, when you look at these athletes that are out there, we have talked about, you and I have, universities should have to declare the GPA and the graduation rate of their athletes. If you're going to receive government funds, grants, at these landmark universities, you should have to disclose that of the athletes that you recruit. If you're receiving these fundings, millions of dollars a year from the federal government, this is something you have to disclose. Just like Donald Trump doesn't disclose his taxes, universities do not disclose the graduation rate or the GPA of their players.
No.
And that's wrong, because you're recruiting kids, you're talking about student athletes. Stop that lie in advertising student athletes, because they're not, Charlton.
Yeah.
I don't care whether it's basketball, baseball, football, track and field. You got to tell me, especially in SEC, Arkansas, one of the greatest track and field teams in the country for decades.
Yeah.
Half of its track team, Charlton, is from across the water, and all their long distance runners out of Africa. So you're going to go tell me you're bringing these guys to the U.S. that don't speak English generally when they get here, and spoken and when they do.
Yeah.
That you're setting them up for a degree of higher learning, or you're just running them to death for 4 years. Let's be realistic about that, because they're not going to get a degree of any standard at Arkansas. They're there to help them win track and field championships.
Yeah.
And beyond that, they're gone. Where do these guys go? They send them back to their country. Yes,
send them right back.
More than what they did when they left.
Yeah.
But that's where they send them back to, Charlton.
Well, Big C, I mean, that's so informative, because everybody needs to have an opportunity. And speaking of opportunity, this segment is sponsored by One Life America Life Insurance. We are the leaders in the country when it comes to final expense. Tweet out to Charlton and Big C Sports. When we're trying to put 1,000 people to work as life insurance agents and life insurance brokers, that means we're trying to help put the economy back on track, Big C. Even though we're making progress, we want to do our part at Charlton and Big C Sports. Tweet out to Charlton and Big C Sports at Yes Charlton on Twitter. And again, One Life America Life Insurance, the leaders in the country when it comes to final expense. Also, Big C, another thing that I want to bring up, and I know a lot of times people just want to get into a score and who won this game and who won that game, but I think you just mentioned something about politics and sports and how it all comes together. We had the AMA last night. Actually, over the weekend, I was up at Jackson Rancheria calling what's called Global Knockout. That's a gorgeous hotel and casino up in Northern California. A lot of great MMA fighters were up there. So there's a lot of activity in the world of sports. And ironically, it's on an Indian reservation, Big C. And we know what happened with the Native Americans, and Donald Trump wanted to send people out of the country and going back to their homeland, etc., building a wall. But I think the president-elect of the United States, the Mr. What's he called? Give it to him straight. He just settled a $25 million lawsuit for fraud. Okay, here's the president-elect that was sued for fraud, and he said that he didn't do it, but he settled. Okay, why would you settle if you're innocent? Here's a guy that was caught not only with his hand in the crotch of a lot of women, Big C, that he bragged about, but he was caught with his hand in the cookie jar stealing money from people, and he had to settle for $25 million. How does a good old boy do that and still get presidential-elect, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, I recall during his election campaign, Charlton, he said he would never settle a lawsuit against because he had at least 1,000 suits out there against him. If he settles one, then everybody's going to sue him and he has to settle them all. Yeah. But, that was just one of the misleading statements that he made once again throughout his campaign on his dishonesty. Yeah. But so many people believed in him that his dishonesty, he could push that to the side, Charlton, and say, well, he's going to create all these jobs. You cannot create these jobs in America because automation has removed 60% of the jobs from America. And that's what the good old boys who don't want to realize that things have changed in America, thinking that you're going to bring all this back. You're going to get rid of all this mechanism to put manual labor back out there? No, you're not, Charlton. Well, you have a robotic machine that can do the work of a dozen, if not 2 dozen people on an assembly line. And economically, all it takes is a little electricity and oil. Okay? Yeah, that's true. It doesn't take lunch breaks. It doesn't do those things. It doesn't say I'm calling out sick. Yeah. I want overtime. If you work him overtime, you still pay him the same amount. Well, see, this is what we talk about in America, whether it's in the agricultural field, whether it's in the industrial America. Automation has changed the face of America. Charlton, go back 25 years ago. Who was able to turn on a computer in their house, Charlton? Nobody. Just 25 years ago. Okay? That was a rarity. Yeah. If you had a computer in your home. Even the cell phone, Charlton, 25 years ago was not the average everyday thing. The person who had a cell phone was an executive. Yeah. Not everybody walking down the street. So when you look at automation, you got to go to your grandmother's house, Charlton, to find a house phone, or your mother's house to find a house phone. Yeah. You don't find them. And even they're using a cell phone. They're sitting up on the cell phone looking at the house phone. Yeah. So when we talk about jobs coming back to America, that means we have to regress in every facet of society, Charlton. That Cadillac Escalade sitting outside was not built by hand. It was built by robots. And the fact that you don't wash it, that put a lot of car wash people out of business, Big C. I think there was a movie called Car Wash back in the 70s, Big C. They had everybody. In fact, they had a lot of Cadillacs in that movie, Big C. They were all tipping at the car wash, but now you don't need it. It's all automated now, Big C. Pam Grier was in that movie. Pam Grier. Yeah. Lot of great actors. When there's a gentleman by the name of Robert Thibault. He wrote a book called Automatism, and it was about what's going to happen in the 21st century when we don't need people. And they're going to use robots to replace people. We have computers that do the thinking for you right now. If someone needs to look up something, they don't go to the library. They pick Google on their phone right now. Like you mentioned earlier, if you want to look up something, back in the day we had to go to the library. Now you just hit Google on your phone. So when Donald Trump was disingenuous with people about bringing jobs back to America, you talked about that plant that was going to leave. I think they're part of an air conditioning company. They were supposed Courier Air, yeah. And so out of South Carolina, 1,700 jobs, Charlton, leaving South Carolina. Yeah, 1,700. He's not going to stop it because they've already have the plant that they're moving to under construction. They made contractual agreements with that foreign government.
Yeah.
They made trade deals here with the U.S. as far as taxes and sanctions that they're going to have to adhere to. That deal is done. So those 1,700 jobs are gone, and the support base for those 1,700 jobs. It doesn't just affect the 1,700 people that work there, but you go 3 or 4 people deep with every one of them with the ripple effect, Charlton.
Yeah, and so we talk about that and everything. It all ties together. And speaking of ties together, this segment is sponsored by One Life America Life Insurance, with the leaders in the country when it comes to final expense, and also United Labor Life Insurance. We're guaranteed issue $100,000 with no medical questions. Tweet out the Charlton and Big C Sports. We work with all of the unions under the AFL-CIO, and we are also endorsed by the American Heart Association and the American Cancer Society. I'm looking to hire over 1,000 licensed insurance agents to help put Americans back to work. Tweet out the Charlton and Big C Sports. We are the #1 media show in the United States of America on iHeartRadio, the #1 platform for media. Everybody, if you're looking to advertise, you got to advertise with iHeart. And also, if you want to be on the top sports show in the country, also in the universe, that's Charlton and Big C Sports. We're the only sports show that does it impromptu. We do it with no teleprompters. There's no speaking head producer in our ear telling us what to say, and it's just real talk. And I encourage all of our median brethren to get back to the days of doing it freestyle, the same way a play-by-play broadcaster does it. They don't have someone telling you what to read when you're in the broadcast booth outside of reading the commercial, and we even do that on the Fly Big C. So I want to tell you, if you're looking to advertise, you want to be on the biggest media network in the United States, that's iHeartMedia. You want to be on the hottest sports show, the only freestyle sports show in the world, Big C. That's Charlton and Big C Sports. The last thing we'll touch on, we've had a lot of good NFL games going on over the weekend, Big C. But I want to talk about just this game that's going on in Mexico tonight, and the great Oakland Raiders. They're traveling across the border, Big C, and hopefully they'll get back before Donald Trump builds that wall. And the great Houston Texans, they're also going down to the great state, actually the great country of Mexico. And there's so many people that love the game. I hear that it sold out 105,000 tickets in 30 minutes, Big C. We talk about teams going to Europe. We talk about teams going to Las Vegas, etc. Is Mexico City a great place to put an NFL team, or is it just too much political information going on down there, Big C?
Well, Mexico would have been the prime place for the U.S. to expand when you think about geographically where it weighs. But there's also a fight back against that. You got to look at the geographics of Texas.
Yeah.
And the two teams that you have there in Dallas and in Houston.
Yeah.
They're looking at that as enemy domain. They don't want to cross. It's sort of like with Buffalo, New York, and Toronto, Canada.
Yeah.
Buffalo has claimed enemy domain and does not want an NFL team in Toronto because they play at least one game there a year, Charlton.
Yeah.
So they look at that as part of their fan base.
Yeah.
You know, so they don't want to put an NFL team. But you look at Stadium Azteca down in Mexico City.
Yeah.
The stadium seats were in excess of 110,000 people, Charlton.
Yeah. The
largest NFL game ever played there was the first NFL game, attendance-wise, ever played in that stadium back when the Dallas Cowboys and the Houston Oilers played down there, when they had 115,000 fans, Charlton, the largest to ever attend a football game in the, an American football game up until this past college season in Bristol, Tennessee, with the University of Tennessee and Virginia Tech, playing at Bristol Motor Speedway. But that's an NFL game, Charlton, that has not gone challenged. 115,000 fans.
That's a lot of moonshine, Big C, from what I understand. You good old boys down south.
lot of liquid sunshine, Charlton. So when you think about what the NFL would gain there, and I know with the new president-elect, he doesn't want any Americans going to Mexico or vice versa, doesn't want Mexicans coming to America.
Yeah.
So, that's a political hurdle that is not just a fence, no pun intended, that they would have to clear.
Yeah.
So, but when you think about what it creates, you think about the number of Americans who go to Mexico on vacation. And I understand Vegas is talking about putting in a team, which is most likely would be a done deal because there's a lot of money that moves to Vegas.
Oh, yeah.
But geographically, New Mexico is a better fit for an NFL team than what Las Vegas is because you got fanfare down there. And you're talking about people who would be hungry for the game. If you put 115,000 people in a stadium,
oh my goodness,
and never had a game down there with less than 105, think about the economics for the NFL.
Yeah.
Forget the cultural barrier. Think about the economic impact Because when we talk about California's Hispanic population, we talk about Texas's Hispanic population, Arizona's Hispanic population, and even New Orleans, Louisiana's Hispanic population. These people go to the game.
Oh, yeah.
The attendance, it has a lot of Hispanic population that goes to the game. So to say that the NFL wouldn't benefit financially, culturally, from being in Mexico City, we even go further. Jim Plunkett, a Mexican-American player, won 2 Super Bowls as a quarterback with the Oakland Raiders.
The Raiders,
So when you talk about the NFL and the Hispanic heritage, Anthony Munoz, one of the greatest offensive tackles of all time.
Out of USC.
Out there at that school, you talk about the red white horse.
That's funny.
NFL Hall of Famer with the Cincinnati Bengals. Hispanic American, Charlton. So when we think about the 25 Hispanic Americans that have been starters in the NFL, and one of the things I look at now, Charlton, there's been, I believe, about a dozen Hispanic kickers in the history of the NFL. Mexican kickers. Not one today. What has happened to that? When we talk about the alienation of certain ethnicities and positions, Charlton, you're going to tell me that there's no Hispanic-born soccer players out there that can't kick in the NFL. Aguayo is the only one that's in the NFL down in Tampa, the rookie. But he was born in America.
That's true.
People like the Zendejas brothers, Marty and Luis Zendejas. They were kickers for over a decade in the NFL. We've had plenty of these guys, Charlton, around, Garcia. But we can't find one anymore. Is that because you don't want to employ him, or you'd rather have a guy that looks more like you that really beats up on his wife?
Well, and that's very powerful to say. And also, speaking of some of the NFL scores, we'll just run it down in the final few minutes of the program. And this segment is sponsored by BeneathHisWingsFoundation.org and CY Entertainment. When it comes to entertainment, contact Cynthia Evans. She's the best in Northern California. Thursday night, it was Carolina 23-20 over New Orleans. Sunday's games, Tampa 19, Kansas City 17, Dallas with the great Dak Prescott 27-17 over Baltimore. Pittsburgh 24, Cleveland 9. It was 16-12 Buffalo over Cincinnati. The New York Giants got a 22-16 win over the Bears. Indianapolis 24-17 over Tennessee. Detroit 26, and Jacksonville 19. It was Minnesota 30, Arizona 24, and I hope the coach is doing okay. And also Miami 14 and Los Angeles 10. Jeff Goff got his first start in Los Angeles. New England 30, San Francisco 17. It was Seattle 26-15 over Philadelphia. Green Bay at Washington. Washington got that win, a big win by Washington. And I just want to say tonight's game with Oakland versus Houston, I think it's a great time of year to take the brand of American football across to another country. Ironically, that same country they're playing in, when they had the golf tournament Cadillac pulled out of Doral because of some of the incendiary things that Donald Trump talked about, they went down to Mexico City, Big C. Now the NFL is showing up, and I wonder what the hardworking Mexican-American families or Mexican families feel, how they feel about this ostracism that's coming from the great country of America. Because around the world, people see us supposedly as the land of the free and the home of the brave, and we have this political slant that's saying we don't like you because your skin's a few shades darker than the Europeans. There's no talk about building walls around Europe to keep people from coming to the United States. It's only about our Latin American brethren and nothing about building a wall to stop Canadians coming in, Big C. I just want to, socially, before we close, Big C, how does it affect how politics can't get along with our countries that are across the border, but they still show up to support our sports teams, Big C? Does that make any sense that sports can bring people together, at least shines a light on how we can all get along, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, when you look at prominent people like Cadillac taking their sponsorship at a golf tournament down to Mexico.
Yeah.
You look at the NFL going down there, Charlton. Major League Baseball has always played winter baseball down in Mexico.
Yeah.
You look at the NBA, they've played several games down in Mexico, preseason and regular season. The sports world, when we talk about combining sports and politics, sports are about reality.
Yeah.
Politics is the fiduciary thing when it comes to sports. People would rather live and breathe and talk sports every day in America. Even politicians talk and live and have their fanfare with their favorite college and pro teams, Charlton.
Yeah.
But sports is something, when you talk about building a wall, you have to look at the cultural biases and comparedness of the U.S. and Mexico, how they integrate each other through sports, whether it's through boxing, some of the greatest boxers in the world out of Mexico, Charlton, the Mexican boxers, historian boxers, Charlton. These guys have been great ambassadors. When you look at the soccer team, the Mexican soccer team, one of the greatest soccer teams in the world consistently.
Yeah.
You know, and they come to the U.S. and play.
Yeah.
You think about the Mexican ball players, baseball players that have been involved in major leagues. So all of these people, when we talk about politics and sports, they go hand in hand, Charlton. These countries have allowed these players to integrate back and forth and participate.
Yeah.
You think about a lot of players who don't make it in NBA. There's Mexican basketball leagues, Charlton, that they go and play. They gain employment from going to a foreign country.
Yeah.
You think about just the trade back and forth, the international trade between the two countries. You can't eliminate that trade, Charlton, because of some people crossing the border. I want to see the lineup of white people crossing the border that want to go to work and do what these Mexicans that come in here into this country, whether it's legal or illegal, and do.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, you know, you want to talk about the illegal labor, Charlton? Who's the white guy that's employing them out in the fields and any other place?
They're all over the place.
Companies that are paying them. Nobody's talking about fining the employer, but you want to eliminate the employee from making a living, Charlton.
Well, I know.
Unfair and racial.
I agree. I know a lot of people in the real estate industry, they brag about how they'll get these Mexican contractors because they don't have to insure them and they don't have to pay them a fair wage, and they're all European Big C. But Charlton and Big C Sports, the reason we are the hottest sports show in the universe is because we do real talk. We are anti-sexism. We are anti-racism. We don't believe you should go around grabbing women by the crotch or saying knock the hell out of somebody if they disagree with you, and we'll pay your legal bills, because unfortunately people are starting to do that, Big C. Our hearts and thoughts go out to the slain officers that have been assassinated because of this hatred that's going on in certain parts of our country. We hope that all law enforcement can stay safe as they work hard to protect the public. We understand they do a hard job. So everybody, we also want to say there's never any tolerance for domestic violence. No woman should ever have to deal with that garbage. If you ever see any woman in trouble, please reach out and help her. Don't make her deal with it on her own. Just call 911. And as we always say, every Monday through Friday at 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time worldwide, follow Charlton and Big C Sports on the iHeartRadio network. And as we love saying, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.